What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Lexi J Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Lexi Johnson. This is my husband and co-host, Brett Johnson. And this week we are talking about something that I think all of us struggle with to an extent. Some of us have combated it and gotten a little bit better at. But we're going to talk about being intentional with our time and just time management in general. This is something that I talk extensively with new clients, and when they're prioritizing or implementing routines that they never have before, it's like, okay, my day is already full. How could I possibly add more to it? How can I, schedule 30 minutes to work out when I'm already feeling like packed to the brim? So I think that a lot of us just don't prioritize and don't utilize the time we have very well. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. This was actually, Brett was talking about thinking that this could be a really beneficial topic. So I'll let you kind of take off with it.
Okay. So I thought that this would be a really relatable topic for pretty much everybody, because it doesn't matter male, female, young, old, there are a gazillion distractions in this day and age. We've never lived in a time where there's been any more distractions than there are now. And the more I deep dive into this, like from almost a deeper level of thinking, there's also, like, there has to be a correlation with the fact that life has never been easier in terms of like things, just like basic needs being provided for you. Like, we have
accessibility and resources.
Right. In America, like in a first world country such as this, we have a roof over our heads. We have air conditioning. It hasn't been that long since people didn't have like heating and cooling. Your parents were just talking about that being a brand new thing for them.
My parents were both 11 years old when they got their first air conditioner in their home.
Right. So people in our generation, that's something that we can easily take for granted because we haven't known anything but that. And whenever all your basics are provided for and you have nothing else to really be concerned about, like you don't have to go and chop wood to have, warmth in the winter, and you don't have to go outside and just get some fresh air and stand in the wind to cool off. Things have changed so rapidly in the past 50, 100 years. Basic needs are met very easily. So now, we have these technological advancements in society that have launched us into a whole new realm after those basic needs were met. And now it's like, if you don't have something to distract yourself with, you look for something else to distract yourself with. Like, if you don't have to worry about providing something for yourself, then it's I think back on these times of whenever I was a child, whenever I would say I was bored, and that's, now that I think about it, that's such a, like, it's a sad thing for me to think about a child saying, because if you are that, like, spoiled to where you have everything there right in front of you that you could possibly need, and you say, well, I'm bored, I don't have anything to do. Like, I think that that's almost a problem.
Well, I feel like now it's less common to be bored because we constantly have something to, like, just fixate on. We have something that's entertaining us all the time. So I think it would be refreshing to be bored. I would be glad to hear the kids are bored, because maybe it means that they're not constantly being inundated with, screen time or whatever.
That's a good
because
point.
I think that boredom comes from not having something to continually entertain yourself, and I don't see that is a problem right now. I feel like there's constantly...
We could probably use more boredom, because it kind of provokes like some actual innovation.
Yeah,
or,
I think the boredom...
creative with their time.
That's right, yeah. Boredom, I think, like, sparks creativity. I think it was like...
We were like the
it was
last
the artist...
generation, really, as children, that we didn't have like a
iPads.
smartphone in our hands,
Yeah.
or an iPad, yeah.
Yeah, I remember it was Mike, like the rapper Mike. He had he had posted something, and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting, because I'm not like a creative, but obviously as a songwriter and a performer, like, he's a creative. And he said creative people need time to do nothing. Like, they need time to be bored in order to inspire creativity. But yeah, I think that that's kind of like, it's contrarian, like that's the opposite. You would think that kids would be, you were talking about being bored as like a sad thing.
That's true.
I think that boredom would be good.
That is true. Yeah.
But we're not talking about kids' use of time.
That's a good viewpoint. Okay, but back to the original thought. I kind of went on like a deeper level there, on like how our basic needs are met now, and like now we have this whole technological advancement that's led to where we are today, where our problem of all these distractions are just basically the technology that surrounds us constantly. I mean, that's really what it boils down to for most people's distractions. So smartphones in general, you're getting notifications all the time for messages, calls, Snapchat, social media. If you have those notifications turned on, you name it. I mean,
News.
News, ESPN notifications. I mean, everybody has different notifications on their phone, but that's gonna catch most of them right there. And then we have what we would like to think are our priorities, and these kind of go in different categories. And they, for most people, they're going to go business, their professional life, and then their personal life, which most of the time is going to encompass their significant other and or family. And then if you have like some your own segment of your personal life that involves hobbies or something. So we've got these different categories of our life, and whenever we're actually choosing, supposedly choosing to do these things, if you're choosing to work, and you're at work, your intention should be to work and to work only, to be effective at it. But the problem is that with all these distractions, that we don't do the thing that we're intending to do effectively.
Yeah, I read somewhere that it's like each train of thought consumes 17 minutes of your attention span. So if you're working diligently towards a task and then you look over and you realize that you have a text message, so you're going to shift focus to that text message, address it, and then you'll come back to whatever it was that you were working on. But it takes like an average of 17 minutes to kind of recalibrate your thought. And I can't quote where
That's crazy.
This was from.
17 minutes.
That's what it says.
That's crazy.
So think about how many little distractions like that, and that could be wrong, and I can't like cite my sources on that, but I am one that is so guilty of just looking over. And I do think you had mentioned like just different compartments of your life. Like when you're at work, be intentional about work, but when you're home, be intentional about being present with your family and all of those things. But like as I work from home, I don't have a commute that's just like chops those two in half, that separates it. I work at a desk that's also in a common space, so I really struggle with separating those two.
Which I think a lot of people could relate to in a day and age where working from home is more common than it's ever been.
Yeah, well, and as an entrepreneur, for those that are listening that run their own business, like I don't work a 9 to 5. I don't work Monday through Friday. Like I work until I see that the job is done, and those are whatever hours and whatever days. Like, so I truly I am not going to claim that I'm good at being intentional with my time. I can be very productive, but I also tend to get derailed, and just they bleed into one another so much. Like I don't compartmentalize my life very well because my business is so intertwined with my personal life, and you're so involved in my business that I don't separate those two very well.
Yeah, well, I think if anybody's being honest with themselves, they can say pretty easily that they struggle with being intentional about their time. I mean, that is an art these days. That is a skill that you have to cultivate over time, because it's something that I work on all the time. And a lot of times you really have to like just take stock of your day to day and like what's really important. Like recently, I got rid of Snapchat. Snapchat was a distraction that I didn't know I needed out of my life.
Why'd you get rid of Snapchat?
Well, the AI bot pissed me off. I'm not going to go down that path, but I am not a fan. So the AI thing.
It's creepy.
The AI thing pissed me off. Yes, it's creepy. And whether or not they tell you that they're tracking everything that you're doing, they are tracking everything you're doing, and they're listening to everything you're doing.
It's entirely
watching
invasive.
everything you're doing. but not to say that they can't just do the exact same thing with my iPhone without Snapchat being on it. But that's neither here nor there, considering the conversation we're having. But I got rid of Snapchat because I was just needing to eliminate at least one thing from my life, because I'm inundated with distractions all the time, and it takes away my level of productivity and effectiveness in my life. And while there is a sacrifice that's being made, because it is a form of communication with friends and family, and that sucks that I lose that, because I miss out on some stuff. Like, you have to fill me in sometimes and be like, hey, here's something that happened, it was really funny, or here's something that's happened, like a life event,
Yeah.
or we have memories. I have, how many Snapchat memories am I missing out on, that usually that we would send back and forth, honestly, probably daily.
Yeah, I keep Snapchat around for the memories, but I honestly hate that as a form of communication. I mean, I'm a horrible Snapchatter, because I'm also not a teenager.
Yeah, we miss the phase of like teenagers that use Snapchat.
Oh no,
solely.
I used to Snapchat hard.
No, but they do that, like, instead of texting. They
Snapchat a lot, but I used to be a big Snapchatter. Now I could care less.
Yeah,
could not
but
care less.
Kind of got derailed there. But I eliminated Snapchat. That was one thing that I didn't realize how much time it would free up, and how many distractions I would just totally wipe off the board. But it was great, and it's a net positive. I came into this conversation thinking, how can I phrase this to make it really resonate? And I think that you need to look for opportunities to eliminate things from your life where it's a net positive outcome. Because yes, there are cons to not having Snapchat for me. I miss out on certain friends that I don't get to see or hear from very often. That was like a primary line of communication. Whether or not it was important stuff, it was just a way to still communicate and hear and see things from them, kind of keep up with friends and family. But that's in the memories, the Snapchat memories. There's a lot of good memories in there. But I still 100% see it as a net positive outcome because of all the positive outcomes that came from it. The elimination of all those distractions, and really what I'm actually actively doing in my real life, I'm intentionally doing those things without those distractions.
Truthfully, when I think about being unintentional with your time and just not utilizing your time well, I think it comes down to just wanting to avoid the hardest, most difficult thing that you need to do. Because typically, if we're being honest with ourselves, you're going to look at your to-do list and you're going to knock off the easy stuff first in order to feel accomplished. However, it's typically not it's not the one or two things that you genuinely need to do to further yourself in that day. And that's why so many people describe themselves as busy, but busy doesn't necessarily mean that you're being productive. I have a little sticky note stuck on my laptop that says, when you complain about being busy, but you don't have anything to show for it, you appear ineffective, unorganized, and inefficient. Like, stop calling yourself busy if you are not producing the fruits that you're just. If you're busy and you're not producing anything to show for it, then what is that time? Like, what is your work worth? You're being ineffective. You're inefficient. And I think that people will like shuffle around their to-do list in order to say, man, like today was swamped, but you're doing these minute things that are not furthering you, that aren't really like typically could be delegated. And I'm pointing at myself, like a lot of times I will do a bunch of little tasks that I could delegate to my team, and then I'll have that one big thing, and it's the last thing on my to-do list that will take up the bulk of my day. And I'm like, oh, shit, that's an ineffective use of time. Mm-hmm. So strategize it in a way that you can knock out your most difficult thing first. One, because typically if you think about your brain power like a gas tank, you're going to be full at the start of the day. So knock out the most challenging, most daunting thing on your to-do list first, because one, you're going to be able to give your full effort. You got a full tank of gas. And two, it's going to be smooth sailing after that, because then you can start just chopping off one by one of those little smaller tasks that aren't necessarily as meaningful. And then when you get to the end of the day and you may have a little bit of excess on your to-do list that you didn't get checked off, but those are things that are not necessarily as important, you can put them onto tomorrow's to-do list. But I think that it's a strategic way of appearing busy but not being productive and avoiding the shit you need to do.
Mm-hmm.
Avoiding the, like, sacrificing temporary discomfort or temporary comfort for long-term discomfort is what they're doing when it needs to be reversed. Make yourself uncomfortable for the short term in order for you to set yourself up in the long term.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, busy is not a badge of honor. That is one of the most common things that I see that just annoys the hell out of me. I mean, it is one of, and I didn't realize that it was so common, and it didn't start bothering me as much until I realized that that's not the goal. The goal isn't, at the end of the day, the goal isn't to say, man, I'm the busiest person alive and just complain about being busy constantly. Like that's not, that doesn't win you any awards whatsoever. Being effective is going to get you so much further. And I'm not saying that being busy is bad, but if you're the person that constantly talks about how they're so behind and they're just inundated with stuff, and any person on the planet that has a job that requires quite a bit of output from them, there's going to be times where you do feel like you're swamped. But if you're constantly swamped and you never ever catch up and you're just constantly complaining about never ever gaining any ground, then that tells me you're an ineffective worker.
Yeah, I would agree.
And this goes back to intention, because then that probably tells me that if you're ineffective with your time at work, then you probably have a really hard time with prioritizing what's really important and distractions.
Yeah, that's the other part, and I had kind of touched on that, just prioritize or priorities. And you can say the same, and we're talking about it more intense in terms of professional life, but that goes back to like a home life, personal life. Like if you feel as if you don't have any one-on-one time with your partner or one-on-one time with your kids, but we are constantly like caught up on shows, or we are not missing a single beat on Facebook or TikTok or anything, like the priorities that you're spending your time and attention on are skewed, and we need to adjust that. You're either adjusting to fix the thing we're complaining about, or we need to shut up about complaining because you're not doing anything to fix it.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, anybody who aspires to do great things like professionally, you're going to be busy. That's part of it. That's just the nature of trying to build something great. But don't wear busy on your sleeve like it's a badge of honor, and try to out busy the next guy and say, well, you just don't understand. I'm extremely busy.
Yeah. There's a psychological principle, I don't know what it's called, but it's basically like you are going to fill the gap of time that you have on that task. Like if you have 30 minutes to complete a task, you are going to fill that 30 minutes. If you have an hour and a half to complete the same tasks, it's going to take you 90 minutes. It makes me think of that quote off The Office where Michael Scott is like talking about Jim. He's like, not a hard worker. It will take him 30 minutes to do a job, and I will spend 3 hours on a job, and it will take him 30 minutes to complete it. He's like, not a hard worker. But he's ineffective with his time. I feel like Michael Scott is the perfect example of that.
Procrastinator.
And it's that flip-flopping of temporary discomfort for long-term comfort. Mm-hmm. Whereas most people just want the quick dopamine hit of comfortability right now. They would rather scroll TikTok for 15 minutes rather than going for a walk. But in an hour, they're going to wish they had felt better. They're going to wish that they had spent that time wiser. But it's just that, that luring in of a quick dopamine hit rather than understanding that if you just do the hard things right now, you're going to set yourself up in the long term.
Right. So I like putting these things that we discuss as well as we can. It's kind of a theoretical thing in saying, okay, well, this is how you should approach it. but I like trying to make it actionable in some way, shape, or form, because that's where somebody can get a takeaway and they can take it with them the next day or the day of and be like, okay, well, here's a great way that I can implement this into my life and be better, or improve. And so for me, whenever we're talking about being intentional, look at an area of your life where you maybe struggle. And if it's your home life, with your family or your significant other, then identify that. If it's your work life and you feel like you're ineffective at work and you're not making any progress, then it sounds like that's probably the path you need to go down and try to make observations about yourself and ways that you can improve. But an actionable thing that you can do is actually make an effort, make a physical effort whenever you're at work to eliminate any distraction from your desk. If it's not within arm's reach, right then and there, you're making a huge step in the right direction by just eliminating a potential distraction. Your phone is a perfect example of that. Unless you have to have your phone right next to you for a call or a text, for work, which is difficult because that is a main line of communication for a lot of people, for work, myself included. But if you can put it on do not disturb, for only work purposes, only certain contacts can actually get through to you. Put your phone upside down, set it aside, get it out of arm's reach, put it on a different, put it on a filing cabinet or something in the same room, and focus on what you're doing right then and there, and eliminate that one distraction. And that's one actionable step that you can take to make progress.
So that book that I had recently finished, the Dopamine Nation book, she talked about this as self-binding. So self-binding is a way that you can get yourself away from that thing that is, the addiction in this sense, or the thing that's causing you the distraction. Did you read the book The Odyssey in high school?
I think so.
So I think we read it, I can't remember if we read it in mythology or if we read it in English, but in the Odyssey, they're traveling and there's this section of like the ocean or whatever where there's sirens. So it's basically like some sort of mermaid. They sing and it's a beautiful noise, and it gets sailors to like jump overboard and they kill them.
I'm thinking of the mythology class that you and I took together in college.
Yeah.
I remember like bits and pieces.
Okay, so sirens are these beautiful singing creatures, and it gets men to jump overboard. But Odysseus needed to stay on the ship. So he instructed his men to tie him to the ship. And he was like, I'm going to beg. Whenever they start singing, I'm going to beg for you to untie me. You can't untie me, because another thing, I can't remember what it was. But basically, he forced himself to be self-bound in order to resist this temptation. So this is a self-binding technique in putting that distraction out of reach. It is okay to like recognize that this is a distraction for you, and then put those things in place. Like, it's the first step to solving a problem is admitting you have one, right? So I think that a lot of times we're like, if you said in your home life, address that you have a problem. If you and I have an issue and you're thinking like, well, in the back of my head it is an issue, but if I bring it up to her, then it's an actual issue. Like, then it's something that we have to talk about. So we try to solve it ourselves, and we ruminate on it and then try and figure it out ourselves. But I think that, one, admitting that we've got something going on and just addressing it, if this is the home life thing. If it's at work and you keep getting distracted by your phone, it is okay to in a sense, self-bind. Put yourself in a position where you are no longer tempted. I am not that big, I have a pretty strong discipline when it comes to nutrition or something. I don't need to stock my shelves full of sugary shit, though, to prove that. It's a self-binding technique. I don't buy that because it's much easier to flex that muscle if I'm not constantly presented with the distraction or the temptation.
Yeah.
I was.
It's pretty simple, really.
Yeah. I was listening to.
Eliminate the distraction.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast, and the host was a former cocaine addict, and he was like, I am in recovery for 15 years, but I don't need to have an 8-ball on the countertop just to prove it. I don't need that in my presence in order to flex that I can do that. So it's totally okay to be like, yeah, my phone is an issue. We need to put it in a drawer. I need to put it in another room. I need to delete these apps. I've also read where people, like writers that need to be focused for long periods of time and dedicate their time and effort to their craft for an extended period, they'll like have someone else change their code on their phone, and then they can't unlock it until the end of the day, and then that person will give them their code. Or
wouldn't that be almost relieving to a certain extent?
Yeah.
You saying that almost sounds relieving, doesn't it? Just it basically gives you permission to not have to get on your phone, because that's a relieving thing. Like if you've ever, the thing is, I think that so many people, we almost like self-indulge and think that we have more important things happening than there actually is happening. It's like,
sure.
It's like you expect that somebody's going to call with an emergency 3 times a day, and that you have to have your phone on your person, because if you don't, then basically life will crumble. And really, we put a huge emphasis on things. When's the last time that you actually got a call where your presence was demanded like that second, and if it hadn't happened that second, somebody was going to die? Like that, like in most cases, the way that most people live in their professions that they have, that's not the case.
Right.
So really, this it's really like extreme FOMO that people have, and it's not fear of missing out on like a going to a concert. It's FOMO in the sense that you think that something dramatic is going to happen, and you're going to miss the call or miss the text, and life is going to crumble.
I honestly don't even think that's it. I think that it's FOMO, like fear of missing out of someone else's life that they're just showing, which you inevitably will see
I'm
the
sure
recap,
for some it is.
A couple hours later. But I know for me, like,
that's really sad.
Just getting to the root of it. It's like, if I am overwhelmed with work, I will just scroll social media and I'll be like, oh, so-and-so's pregnant. So-and-so's on vacation. That's so nice of them. Look, I haven't seen them in a while. And it's like, I can recognize in that moment, I am like, this is gross. I'm intentionally distracting myself from doing the shit that I know I need to do. And it's meaningless. It's mindless. But it's just like junk food. It's just something that satiates that discomfort in the short term.
Yeah. How many people do you think thrive on living vicariously through other people?
Oh my gosh.
Via social media.
So many, and it makes me really sad. And I've talked about this, so I don't think Carly will care that I share this, because I'm pretty sure I've shared it before. But the best example that I have of this, because we were in Arizona, so I took my team to Arizona in December, and we were hiking Camelback Mountain. And leading up to this, the girls were so excited to hike, which I love hiking, so I was pumped about this. We were hiking Camelback Mountain, and Carly had never hiked before. She was so excited. And then we did it, and we're on our way up, and it's tougher than she expected. And it was a tough hike, and she was complaining, and she wanted to turn around. Like, we hadn't made it up, and she was like, this is good enough, right? Like, we're close enough to the top. And
I got one for the gram.
Yeah, and I was like, Carly, what's going to happen is that we're going to turn around, you're going to scroll through social media, you're going to look at someone's TikTok and be like, wow, someone else climbed this mountain, how amazing. Like, that video looks majestic. I wish my life could be like that. But you're doing it right now. You're living that TikTok that you're going to go watch, and you're going to like dream about living someone else's life, but you're doing it right now. This is the discomfort that's going to bring you, when you get to the top, you're going to feel so proud, you're going to feel so accomplished. But it's that uncomfortable spot in the middle that no one talks about, that nobody glamorizes. So then when it makes it to the gram or TikTok, that spot's already forgotten about.
But that's a perfect representation of how people...
By the way, Carly, I love you. And thanks for letting me use this story.
But don't be soft, Carl. But that's a perfect representation of like how people, or how social media is just, it creates it's a flawed model, because
it's a perfectly geared model.
Well, yes, from the ownership's perspective.
It is a machine.
But in terms of like the user, the end user, it creates this flawed perception of reality, because you see the end, and you see somebody, flexing on top of a mountain. You see somebody with the beautiful house. You see somebody with the brand new car.
Somebody that's lost 50 pounds.
Yeah, you see the end result, and you think, man, that is awesome, and I want that. But then you figure out what it takes or what it would theoretically take to achieve that thing. And then you think, well, that sucks. Never mind. Not going to do that. Like, even if you do put a foot forward and you start making an actionable step, I don't know, it just creates this, it's a scary thing, really, because social media has just created this way of humans discounting themselves because they think, well, that person can have it, but I'll never have that. And they just start living vicariously through others.
Yeah, it definitely creates like this dystopian effect that your life will never lead up or will never measure up to someone else that you have no idea, but also their life is so normal also. And I think one of the best things about being exposed to people that you see, like high profile people on social media, the best thing in me, like being exposed to them as an individual, is that I see that they're a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, so like their morning routine actually doesn't mean that they don't have problems. The fact that their Instagram stories are so aesthetically pleasing doesn't mean that like they don't have issues. They don't have financial problems. They don't have relationship problems. Like they're a real
you have that
human.
crazy family member too.
Yeah, like, oh my gosh, wait, you actually deal with this shit too. You're a real
Right.
person. And it's so easy to just assume that those people with the blue check marks or the massive followings are like, they just have it figured out. And once you reach that number of followers and once you reach this level of success, then like all of those other problems disappear. But that's not the case at all. And I think that kind of like unveiling that has been a really big blessing to me, because I've been able to see and be like, well, it doesn't really matter. Your level of success does not erase the just human experience that
Right.
we all have.
Yeah, that is so true though, because you automatically assume that somebody that's in a better place than you are currently, or has more status than you do, you automatically assume that they aren't living the same human experience that everyone else is. Like they are humans. They are experiencing the exact same bodily bowel movements that you're experiencing. Like there's nothing that's special except for the choices that person has made to get them to the point where they're at.
Yeah, it also makes people assume with that like huge following and success, whatever, they're like, well, this comment from a measly little me wouldn't hurt their feelings, so we'll just throw it out there. Mm-hmm. We'll DM that, or we'll comment something, and like you're still hitting a very real person. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a wild thing. Social media.
They seem like an object rather than an actual human.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times it's like, well, I mean, they'll probably never see it, or if they do, like, they'll be unaffected by it because they get immersed with so much praise or so much validation already. Like a comment from me probably won't matter.
Yeah. One negative comment outweighs 3,000 positive.
Oh my gosh, it really does. One time I got like one really nasty comment, and all the other comments were so positive and supportive or whatever, and Brett was like, you know what happens if everybody in the elevator's wearing cologne but one person farts, you know what you're gonna smell, right? Like, it's not gonna be the cologne. And I felt like that is such a crude way to put it, but it's so true. You're not gonna smell the cologne.
Isn't that the truth? Unfortunately. But we kind of got off on a tangent there, but social media in a nutshell is a huge distraction in itself.
Yeah, I think that would account for the majority of the distractions.
Right. So if you can identify a way for you to eliminate some distractions, if it's putting a time limit, a time restriction on your phone, then do that. And make it a daily practice that you're not going to exceed that threshold. You're not going to click, give me another 15 minutes. And if you have like a smart watch, like it's just another extension of your phone. I've found that wearing a real watch during the day has been pretty freeing as well. So if I do set my phone off to the side where it's out of sight, out of mind, and out of arm's reach, then I don't get the notification on my Apple Watch.
Oh, that's a huge thing. I do not have any of the cellular data, like functions.
You don't have an Apple Watch. You got like a Garmin.
I have a Garmin, but you can still do like text messages and stuff, and I just have all of that.
It.
Yeah, I have all of those functions in it or disabled because I don't need any more notifications.
Yeah,
So
think that's
I use
super
it
wise.
purely for steps and like a stopwatch.
Yeah, so if you insist on having, you know, your watch that tracks your steps, excuse me, which I totally understand, especially whenever you have fitness goals, and that's important to you, like, totally get that. But at least disable the push notifications that you receive, because it's really just an extension of your phone, and it's going to be another distraction for you. So that's a big one. That
I have my notifications turned off for my social media, so I don't.
Same.
But a lot of people don't. Like, they'll get banners for every comment they get, every DM they get.
I don't know how anybody gets anything done, especially if they're active on social media and have those on.
No, but I mean, like, some people may not know that that's an option, but disabling your notifications for your specific apps, so that way.
Go to the notification setting on your phone.
Yeah.
Look and see what's on there, what's actually like a push notification that'll make it to your home screen.
Right. I can't stand those notifications, like any notifications really. I have my phone on Do Not Disturb at all times. It's in my possession at almost all times of the day, so I don't need that extra bing or vibration. Like, I'm gonna see it.
Right. Or, you know, if it's not your phone, and let's say that you're addicted to watching Netflix, you know, every night, which, I mean, I would say that that's how most people watch TV anymore, is through a streaming service of some sort. And while we have it on in the background a lot of the time, or before we'll watch it in the evening, that's usually kind of a wind down time for us. Like, we watch shows that, you know, we've watched 1,000 times before, so it's really just kind of a comfort thing. But if it's something where you get no quality time with your significant other, or your family, because of it, then I would say that's a problem. I think that would be pretty easy to identify that is not going to it's not going to create a stronger relationship with the people that mean the most to you. So maybe take a TV out of a room, or unplug it from the wall. Don't give yourself the option to do it, because, like Lexi was saying previously, the self-binding technique, you know, if you basically, you know, pull the plug on the option, then you're stuck with what you've got, and you make do, and it's going to force you to do other things.
Yeah, and if you are looking for a way to just be more intentional and present with your significant other or your kids or something, get outside and leave your phone at home. Like, Brad and I went for an hour and 15-minute walk today, and aside from taking my one picture for my Get My Ass Outside Instagram story, my phone was in my, like, looped onto my ruck, and I didn't touch it the whole time, and it allowed us to be present and have a conversation, because I will admit, and as gross as I feel when I do it, like, it's really hard for me to sometimes put my phone down where I feel like I'm working, and sometimes I use that just as an excuse for me to continue mindlessly scrolling. But if you look back and you're like, wow, my husband was trying to talk to me and I had my phone in my face and I was half listening. Like, that makes me feel gross to admit, but putting that, like, self-binding technique, I think a lot of people are like, well, if I have to do that, then it is a real issue, and it brings to the surface that they have a problem, or they have a control issue with this, or they have a distraction issue, and that doesn't sit well with a lot of people. But it's okay to admit that, hey, like, I need a little extra cushion in this area, I need a little extra help. So I think putting those restrictions on yourself when it comes to keeping your phone out of reach when you're trying to buckle down and get work done. Use a power list also. Don't overload it. Don't make it 25 things long, because then you're overwhelmed and you're going to end up doing all the little tedious tasks that make you feel good because you get to check things off, but you're not going to accomplish anything. Put 5 key things that you need to get done today in order to further yourself tomorrow, in order to make tomorrow just a little bit easier, and check those off. And then if you get done with those and you want to continue feeling productive, then you can go and do those little things. And then at the end of the day, you can brag to your husband about how productive and effective you were with your time, rather than how busy you were and how you still have so much left to do.
Yeah. Really, if it's something that you've never done before, if you've never given yourself the permission to be away from, like, your phone, you take it everywhere you go. Like, that was me, like, even probably a year ago. but I've gotten pretty good about being able to just leave it on the charger whenever I'm home, or leave it at home when we go on a walk. Like, there's no reason for me to have it.
Yeah.
And I mean, think about how people operated literally like 20 years ago. They didn't have the phones on them like that. Like if you had a flip phone Nokia, like that was it. But my point is that it's a liberating thing, and you really don't need to have that object on you all the time, and it's a liberating feeling to just like not have that distraction whatsoever, around you at all.
And when you take that distraction out of the workplace when you're trying to get things done and be effective, then you are going to be twice as effective. You'll get so much more done in a short amount of time, and then you have more free time. So then you have that time to use at your disposal. We're not saying throw your phone in the garbage disposal. We're not saying to cancel your Netflix. Like, you can use that extra time to do whatever you want. But when you're dedicating the time to that specific task, genuinely dedicate it.
Yeah, it really is amazing how effective you can be with your time if you eliminate just a few distractions. We're not even talking about eliminating all of them. It's just if you eliminate a few, it makes a huge difference in how productive you are. And from people that value their worth on productivity to a fault, we can both attest to the fact that eliminating distractions is a huge win.
Yeah, for sure. I think bottom line, just be effective, not busy. And if busy is something that you continually pride yourself on, I have this sticky note right here. Let me read it. It says, when you talk about how busy you are and no results are produced, you appear unorganized, ineffective, and weak. No one wants to appear unorganized, ineffective, or weak.
Yeah. That's the real jab at the end. Sucker punch. Weak.
Be effective, not busy. All right, guys. I think that's all we've got this week. I just wanted to plug before we finish, we are starting our summer challenge on Monday, July 10th. So that's this upcoming Monday. We have a consistency challenge. So that's a great way to just get your foot in the door as far as developing some solid habits, really starting to, make a lifestyle change and implement these habits in order to change the trajectory of your entire life. So I like to incentivize consistency, both because I think that it's a great starter way to get going. It's also a good way to maintain habits that you continue to build. Maybe you're in a position where you're not going to see fantastic results, like you've been killing it for years on years, and you're in a position where your body composition isn't going to change all that much, but you still want to be incentivized. I think I am very passionate about.
You don't have to need a huge transformation in order to jump in.
Yeah.
It simply incentivizes somebody being consistent, which everybody can stand to be.
Absolutely. I am a habits-based gal, so I want to incentivize and reward people that develop really good habits. So I have that consistency side of the challenge. I give about $3,000 in prizes just for consistency, and then I also have a results-based prize. So 3 people get to an all expenses paid weekend to spend with the Lexi J Wellness team. And the last time we did this, it was so much fun. I'm so excited to do it. But in the meantime, if you are just a Lexi J Wellness subscriber and you are have taken your photos in the first format before July 10th, I'm giving away 2 Ruckers backpacks with a 20-pound weighted vest included. That's a $350 value.
20-pound weight that goes in.
Yeah, 20-pound weight that goes into the backpack. Excuse me. $350 value each, and I'm giving away 2 of them just simply by being eligible for the challenges. So I love giving back to you guys because I appreciate all the support, and just I look forward to helping change lives along the way. When you when you go first and lead the way, it doesn't stop with you. It affects your kids and your significant others and your students, your coworkers, everybody along the way. So we're making this domino effect pretty big, and I just want to give back to it. So I'm excited about it. I would love to have you partake.
If it's not enough to be able to see the physical benefits that you would provide for yourself by participating and getting active and doing it consistently, and all the positive effects that come from that, between the way you interact with your family and your friends, and generally speaking, just see your life improve in all ways, shapes, and forms.
Yeah, the worst thing that happens at the end of this 8 weeks is you just develop really solid habits. You get a little bit stronger, a little bit more confident, have better mental health. That's the worst case scenario. The best case scenario is that you get all of those things and then you win $500. You win an all expenses paid trip weekend. You know?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. You
Pretty
get to
sick deal.
experience all the cool stuff and the possibility to go on a trip or win some money.
Yep. All right, that's it. I will talk to you guys next week. You got anything left?
If you have any questions that you want to submit for future podcasts, you can submit those to pod@lexijwellness.com.
Yes, sir.
I think that's all we got.
Have a good week.